Science cannot explain everything, especially when people see or hear something that cannot be explained, and science is left asking questions. The following two stories had intelligent people baffled after they experienced strange phenomena with no rational explanation. Yorkshire, 1993. The following unexplained event took place at the East Ardsley Conservative Club in Yorkshire in northern England. The club was fitted with security cameras, and one Thursday afternoon, the club treasurer, Bill Hodgson, was alone in the club and waiting for a friend to join him. Bill then decided to check the security cameras and spotted the figure of a man standing in the doorway of the club. Believing that the figure in the doorway was his friend, decided to walk to the doorway and greet him, but when he approached the doorway, found that there was nobody there. Figuring the man had suddenly departed, Bill decided to return to the video screen and was shocked to see that the figure of the man in the exact location as before and had for all intents and purposes not moved an inch. A few days later, Bill Hodgson was at the club at the same time, and as he checked the security camera, noticed the very same spectral figure of a man standing in the doorway. Fortunately for Bill, the security camera had recorded both images of the ghostly figure, which gave Bill proof that he was not going crazy, and other club members could not have doubted him. After the image had been checked by experts, they were unable to come up with a rational explanation. As word spread about the images that were caught on the tape, many came forward claiming that they often felt a bit spooked and often felt a presence in the club, but most refused to accept it was a ghostly entity. However, Bill said he would challenge anyone to stay alone at the club at midnight and observe and approach the spectral figure in the doorway. Unfortunately, they were never able to identify who the ghostly figure in the doorway was. Barbados, early 19th century. The following unusual story took place around the early 1800s in the eastern Caribbean island of Barbados, which was a British colony from 1625 until 1966. A wealthy Englishman by the name of Colonel Thomas Chase lived on the island and was known to be cruel and short-tempered to both his family as well as the slaves. Chase had a family crypt built in the cemetery of the Christchurch parish in Oistins, Christchurch, Barbados, which became known as the Chase Vault. The first person to be buried in the crypt was a relative by the name of Mrs. Goddard, who died on the 31st of July 1807 and placed in a lead coffin. Tragically, a few months later, in 1808, Thomas Chase's 2-year-old daughter, Mary Anna, passed from a disease and was also placed inside the crypt. Then on the 6th of July 1812, another of his daughters, called Dorcas, passed away at the young age of only 12 and was also placed inside the crypt. And there were rumours that the young girl had taken her own life by starving herself. When Dorcas, the third person, was placed inside the vault, everything looked normal when the doors to the crypt were opened and a coffin was placed amongst the others. In August 1812, Colonel Thomas Chase himself passed away, and it is not known whether he died by his own hands or was slain by his slaves for his cruelty and inhumanity. Very strange things started to happen when the crypt doors were opened and Chase was about to be placed amongst the other members of his family. As they opened the crypt to inter Thomas Chase, they found that the inside was in total disarray. 2-year-old Marianne's tiny coffin had been thrown to the corner of the crypt. In order for this to have happened, there would have to have been a flooding or an earthquake. The water in a flood would have floated the coffins inside, or an earthquake would have disturbed the ground. Both of these possible reasons were discounted, as there had been no flood nor earthquake. However, a strong force had somehow moved the small coffin to the other side of the crypt. The coffins were then placed into their original locations side by side, and Thomas Chase's coffin was placed on top. Fearing that vandals may enter and disturb them, they placed sand over the floor in order to detect footprints. Then in 1816, another young infant in the family had unfortunately passed at a young age, and after 4 years of the crypt being closed, was reopened to inter the deceased child. When they opened the doors, they found that the coffins had again been moved about. However, the sand had not been touched, so nobody had entered the vault, and yet the coffins had somehow rearranged themselves. The coffins were duly placed into their original location, and the sand was again spread on the ground, the same as they had previously done. A few weeks later, another family member had passed, and when they opened the crypt to place the coffins inside, they found the existing coffins had again been disturbed, and again the sand was untouched. Many rumours were now spreading as to why this strange event was happening, and one theory was that the disturbance only started after Thomas Chase had been interred. Because Chase had been so unliked due to his cruel nature, the spirits of the deceased members of his family were objecting to his body being placed in the crypt. In July 1819, another member of the family was about to be interred, and this time rumours and superstition had now spread amongst the local population, where the Governor of Barbados, Lord Combermere, wished to be present when the doors were opened. When the doors were opened, yet again the coffins had been strewn about the room, and the sand was undisturbed. Again, the coffins were placed into their original positions, but this time in the presence of Lord Combermere and his party. Amongst the party was the sketch artist who accompanied Lord Combermere and drew the position in which the coffins were found. Apparently, copies of his sketches are still in existence on the island. The floor was re-sanded and mortar was laid down to secure everything, but before the door was securely closed, the Governor made several impressions in the wet mortar with his official seal, along with others in attendance who also added their own special marks in the mortar. Almost 1 year later, on 18th of April 1820, the Governor ordered the outer seals of the door broken and the vault doors opened. On this occasion, there were even more witnesses present to observe the outcome, which included the local Chief Justice Nathan Lucas, who claimed to have been a first-hand witness, as well as the Reverend Thomas Alderson and Barrister Robert Rees, Sir Algernon Aspinall and Mr. K. Redding. As the doors were opened, the first thing the Governor did was check the official seal, which he found intact, and the other marks people had made were also undisturbed. When the doors were pushed wide open, they found that the coffins had been thrown about yet again, and one of the baby's coffins had been thrown so violently that a huge gouge mark had been left in the wall, and another coffin had been thrown down some steep steps at the bottom of the crypt. Fearing that they were never going to solve the problem of the violently disturbed coffins, they removed them from the vault and buried them in another location. The vault was then sealed up and was never used again.